Lesson 64, and I'm just going to do the balanced scorecard here. Some people call it basics, and it's by Kaplan and Norton. And the whole idea is, traditionally what we've always done is, or what businesses have always done is, they just looked at financial measures, but financial measures only tell part of the story. So they wanted to align business activities to the vision and strategy of the organisation. That was the idea. Right, so therefore basically what they wanted to do was they wanted to measure many more different things. So they want to look at strategic non-financial performance measures, but they also still looked at financial performance measures, but businesses have always looked at those. The balanced scorecard retains the traditional financial measures, but financial measures tell the story of past measures. Okay, so you want to create future value through. So there's other things that you should be measuring, like, for instance, investment in customers, what your suppliers think of you, what the employees think, the processes that the organisation involves. You can measure technology, and you can also measure innovation. So it's a much broader idea. It's not just looking at the financial performance, it's looking at all of these things which are not maybe as easy to quantify as the financial measures. Okay. Still here on the balanced scorecard, and we have 4 other perspectives that we can look at. One of them is the financial perspective, which I've already discussed, which is always looking at data from the past, which, I mean, in a sense, a lot of these processes now can also be automated, so we can actually get the financial data in real time, and that can go to management. But there are also some other perspectives, like the learning and growth perspective, because most industries now are characterised by some pretty rapid technological change. So therefore what you need is, you need knowledge workers who need to be in a continuous learning mode. They're going to need lots of help, and they're getting a lot of tutoring and mentoring in, and they also need the right technological tools in which to do their jobs. So it's very important when we're looking today at firms that we see what sort of technology that they have, and what are they thinking of doing with their technology. So people need to be trained in it, but they need constant training, and it needs to be continuous training, so they can continuously keep up to date with what's going on. The business process perspective: does your product fulfill customer requirements? Is it good enough for the customer? The customer perspective: you need to look at what the customers think about your product. So you need to have indicators that suggest they're happy with it, or perhaps they want more from it, or less from it, or whatever they do want, as well as the financial perspective. So basically the balanced scorecard is looking at the model in a much broader way. Okay. Lesson 64, and here we're doing the triple bottom line, and this is put forward by a guy called John Elkington. In fact, I'm just reading his book. It's called the Unbalanced Power of People. I think that's what it's called anyway. And basically what he says in his book is that society is occasionally made up of unreasonable people, and unreasonable people ask for unreasonable things, and particularly in terms of the social environment. And everybody thinks initially, of course, that they're completely crazy, but maybe their model has something worthwhile to say. Anyway, so John Elkington in 1984 came up with this idea called the triple bottom line, which is people, profit and planet. Now, or profit, people and planet. Now, profit is the traditional bottom line that every firm measures. Every firm should obviously measure their profit. People is how well does a company look after its people, how socially responsible they are, and they call this the Zeigest after the year 2000, the Zeigest of corporate social responsibility, when that became a very big issue. So how socially responsible is a firm, and lastly the planet, and how environmentally friendly is the firm. Now, basically what's happened is, of course, obviously a lot of our manufacturing has moved to China and has moved to Brazil. People have become very concerned about this because of the logging of the Amazon, the climate change that's occurred, the exploitation of cheap labour. So people say if you run a business, then you should run a business for these 3 things and not just for profit. And it really came about with the fair trade movement. But the fair trade movement, although it's a really good movement, still only accounts for 0.2% of all trade. Now, obviously, when we talk about the planet, these things are very, very difficult to measure. But John Elkington is saying that we ought to measure them. And the reason why they're so difficult to measure, of course, is that people have different views and opinions on how we should look after the planet. But anyway, this is so we got Kaplan and Norton's the balanced scorecard approach. Right, which is looking at different perspectives, the customer perspective, etc., the worker's perspective, the manufacturing process, and all of those sorts of things, not just the financial measures. Whereas this one looks at people and the planet. So it's much more sort of left-wing, if you like, but people do build socially responsible models. And John Elkington's, I suppose, big argument is that, okay, 60% or 40% or a lot of the world lives in poverty, so you've got to develop models which help the whole world and not just the richest 40%. Anyway, John Elkington's very interesting area of business studies, the triple bottom line.